What's up, guys? There's Mac. What's up, guys? Got a few more folks joining in. Mac Blunts is about to hop in and we'll get this fired up. Hope everybody's doing well, staying well. Just a quick plug. We just dropped the new Pineapple Sorbet line. If you haven't checked those out yet, terp.com. Go get you some seeds. Tons of dank flavors. This was pretty much the shoot me a request, Mac. It was the F4 line of the sorbet. Most of these crosses were made with the F3 line. What's good, dog? And yeah, I'm really proud of these. Everybody that's run the sorbet historically has had a great time with them. They've been some dank strains, stuff that really heavy terps, unique tropical flavors. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more, but if you look at something your homies ain't running, go get that sorbet.
What up? What up, guys?
What's up, dog?
How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Good.
You?
Good.
How you doing?
Good, brother. How are you? Trying to figure out. Can't hear really well. Let me see if I can turn it up.
Yeah.
Yo, I appreciate everybody for jumping in, joining Dank Talk, man. Appreciate you supporting my boy Terp. You guys supporting me, so I really appreciate that, man. I know for one thing, bro, this fucking Pineapple Sorbet line gonna be lit.
Yeah.
Yo,
It's funny because, like, this is one of those lines that, like, when I hear other people say their shit's exotic or unique, and then I hit this shit, it's like, yeah, we're not talking the same language.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
that pineapple sorbet is on a different level. It's just levels of complex that I just haven't seen anywhere else. Like,
Yeah, man.
20 some years of popping seeds, and I haven't seen anything like it. That's why I started working with it, was because honestly, man, the first time I hit it, it just hit me in a way that I was like, this is different than anything I've ever run. And like, that's the sort of shit that when something speaks to me like that, my first instinct is I want to work with that. Like, I want to take that and I want to see what else is out there.
Yeah.
I want to see what else we can do with it. I want to see what else we can throw in the mix and make it even more unique, you know?
So I got a question. So is the pineapple sorbet, is that a cross, or is that, okay, let me see how to say it. Is that, what made the pineapple sorbet?
It's a strain by aficionado seeds.
Okay.
And it's like, I'd have to look it up. It's like a 4-way cross between like Skittles, In the Pines. There's a pineapple tie in there, and there's one other cross that I'm forgetting.
Oh.
It's like a 4-way cross.
Yeah, man.
But
with those, that lineage alone is kind of explains why it's so terpy, man. You got the tie in there, bro. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, it's in working with it, that's part of why it's been so unique, is because it's got these like old school, like Thai, like heavy pepper, like not really new school phenos. Like, it's got a lot of that like old world shit.
Nice.
In the crossing. Like, the original F1 that I started working with is all over the board. There's tons of different phenos. There's stuff that leans to the Thai, stuff that leans towards the Skittles. But the best of what I've found out of that has kind of been these crosses that almost are a good mix of all four of what's in it. And it's because it's not all of the strains that are in it are super unique of their own. But like, the combination of them has been amazing. But what we found is that like where it really shines is in the F1 crosses of other stuff. So it kind of picks up. The original Pineapple Sorbet has this like unique candy pineapple incense, like really unique. It's tough to describe, like almost tropical, like almost pineapple-y. Fruit reminds me of a fruity drink on the beach. Like that's what I always say it reminds me of.
Yo, so I was in the Discord, and your Discord, by the way, tag, check out Terp's Discord, man. It's a lot of great people, individuals in there that shares a lot of great knowledge and genetics. But a guy was talking about your Nab Champa, and he was saying it's one of the most exquisite Terp profiles that he's ever experienced. And my head goes, as a breeder, goes, man, I wonder if he's put the Pineapple Sorbet to the Nag Champa yet.
It's it. The Nag Champa is a Pineapple Sorbet cross.
Yeah. There it is.
So here's what's funny, right? The two strains that went into the Nag Champa came into my life at the same time. The Big Dirty, which it's essentially an Alien Wi-Fi Girl Scout Cookies Tangy cross. That's the mother of the Nag Champa. Those seeds came to me at the 2015 Denver Cannabis Cup, and by way of a friend. Like they originally were bred by Cookie Mane, a Captain's Choice, or I'm not sure what I don't remember off the top of my head what his actual seed company's called. And they came by way of a friend that picked them up at the cup and then gave them to me and was kind of like, hey, look, I don't really grow a lot. Will you run them? And I was like, yeah, man, whatever. I didn't really think much about it. It was in like a little matchbook, and it literally just said Alien Wi-Fi crossed to GSC crossed to Tangy. And I was like, I'll take a chance. Like, they slapped so hard because it ended up being this super dark, super black, like really heavy resin tangy type crop, like really kind of like citrus but more unique with like a funky thing. And so I hit that to the Pineapple Sorbet male that we did a ton of crosses with back then. And yeah, it just really was heavy incense. Like a lot of those have like a really, like when I think of Nag Champa, the incense, it's really complex. There's a lot going on there. There's some floral notes. There's some kind of juniper notes. There's some, there's all kinds of different shit in incense. And so what you really start to see with the cross of the Sorbet and the Big Dirty was that, it's levels of complex that I had never seen before. And so when we kind of look back, right, and we look back to 10, 15, 20 years ago, I feel like the strains that people were running were a lot more simple because they were, it was easy to describe. It was piney, or it was skunky, or it was
peppery,
blueberry, or it was peppery. And now what we're seeing is we've gone so far down the polyhybrid rabbit hole that we're seeing stuff we've never seen before. Yeah, truly, stuff we've never seen before.
So I'll give you an example, and this is the best way I could describe it. I didn't know how else to describe it. So I'm running Dr. Red Scare's Howard the Monk F2, right? And it's super greasy. Like when you touch it, it's...
Shout out to Nate. Good people.
No.
Mad love. Red Scare. Good people. Yeah.
No, for sure. I told him it's super greasy to the touch, right? And the only way I can describe it is like a baby ate puree yams and farted. Like it smells like sweet fart. Like bro, I know you can't even put that into a smell, but that's the best way I can describe it, bro. And I don't know what I'm super stoked about it, man.
So the thing about those like greasy or trichome strains is that they tend to not make as good non-solvent hash because they either don't hold up really well in the wash, or the trikes just don't process well as far as like however you're handling, if you're sifting or whatever your method is. But they make some of the best BHO, like because it's just all terps, and it's what you're really seeing there is it usually means they have a really thin membrane around the trichome or the oil. So like there's usually more oil to wax ratio, but it also means they usually tend to be really terpy and specific terpenes, and so that doesn't wash as well. But man, if you extract those with BHO, Dude, you're talking about some of the nastiest, drippiest, just terpiest. Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
I
Shout out to
want to
Redskin.
bring it. I want to bring it back to the pineapple sorbet, if we will. And it's kind of great that you led up to that, because I wanted to ask you: have you had any feedback on how stuff with the pineapple sorbet washes and creates concentrates and stuff like that?
Yeah. So, like, the first round of crosses that I did, like, this is the round that I'm dropping now is made with the F4, with the F3. I'm sorry, with the F3 male, and we made the F4 generation. And it'll be the last time I work with this line, and it's quite simply because I don't want to limit the flavors. So my options as a breeder are either A, to do open pollination and use 3 and 4 different, 5 different profiles, or just say, we'll just let what's done now at this point represent this line, and I'm going to go back to the F1s and see what else is out there. That being said, almost all of the crosses that we've made with it have made really good melt, but some have been better than others. Like the Nag Chaba, for instance, there's a couple in this round that I'm really, they're just hash strains, like the Banana Punch cross, the Wasp Honey. Anything Banana Punch just throws these like fat, beach sand looking trichomes. They're extra thick. They're just extra, they hold up really well to the wash, yield well to the rosin, and that's what everybody's looking for right now. Like that's it.
I know what I'm running of yours right now is the blacked out truffle and the Flintstone. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, the Flintstone is a cereal milk cross. I don't know I forgot the second cross, the second part of the line. What is that?
Wasn't it a Fruity Pebbles G cross?
Was it a Fruity Pebbles? Was it cereal? Or maybe the Terp drip was cereal milk, if I'm not mistaken.
Terp drip is definitely cereal milk. The Terp drip was cereal milk royal goo.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, all those Terp drip crosses, which are once again still available at terpfiend.com. Go grab all of those crosses. All of them are dank. But the project with that specifically was hash. And it goes back to the royal goo that I started. That was a strain that I wanted to make that was a heavy kush that represented all of the best things about what kushes have to offer, but that had big trichomes that extract well. And that's the kind of folly with a lot of those Afghans and kind of kushes, especially the old world ones, was they were a lot of smaller heads. The Granddaddy Purple is a great example I use all the time. If you wash Granddaddy Purple, you can get a ton of 25, Mike, the lowest, smallest heads, and not a whole lot else. Wow. Because it's just, they don't extract well, they don't wash well. And so with I will say, the Long Valley Royal Kush that I used in the Terp drip is one of the dankest Kush strains that washes well that I've ever run into. And so I hit that to an Afgoo cut that I had at the time, and it's still a pretty much pure indica, pure Kush for the most part. And it washes great. And so all of the crosses that we did with the Royal Goo have been just dump hash strains.
No, for sure, bro. I apologize to the audience. I misspoke about the Flintstone, but I brought up the Flintstone because in my garden, bro, it is one of the most frostiest plants in there. And when I say sturdy, it's not even leaning up against the trellis net. And it's still just...
Is that a Fruity Pebbles OG F3 cross to the Terp drip?
I believe it did come out with that line. I wouldn't be
shocked if I'm wrong, man. I've put out so many at this point. Yeah. It's like Eminem with lyrics. I was watching this video with Eminem the other day talking about he almost doesn't like to rhyme anymore because now he gets to a point where he's like, I feel like I'm just saying shit I've already said before because I don't remember everything that I've said because I've said so much. You
sound like Lil Wayne.
Similar. I've put so many out that it really is a point where you go, man, some of them I have to look up. People ask me all the time, and I'm like, my brain is so full of genetics and so full of strains that I wish I could remember every one that I've ever grown, bred, smoked. But fuck, man, your brain finally goes, you know what? Some of this shit's just got to go because if you're going to learn something new, there's only so much space, you know?
I've seen episodes with Lil Wayne. Shout out Lil Wayne. If you're watching this, man, hey, shout out. Yo, Lil Wayne, bro, this girl stood up and spit a Lil Wayne lyric to Lil Wayne, and he was like, hey, who said that? She was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that
yeah.
show
He does
is.
that.
She was like,
He does
oh,
that all the
oh,
time
yeah,
because that dude, it's a little different with him and Marshall because Marshall, everything was written down. Everything he ever did was written down. And with Wayne, it was never that. He
right,
was never writing shit. It was all off the top of
yeah,
his head. It was, let's get in the booth. The kid lives in the booth. Like he's been like that since he was 12 years old or something,
yeah.
like ridiculous, bro. I remember when them little thin paper CDs, it was like a paper folder. It was those and the No Limit guys, all of those Louisiana dudes and all the No Limit dudes. It was those little paper CDs back in the day, and they would be
No,
everywhere in my school. And we swapped them because you'd listen to one out and burn it out, and you couldn't have, you didn't have money to get another one. So you swap it with a friend, and you get, No Limit Soldier, you get the Juvenile album or one,
yeah,
that was a great time for hip
bro.
hop, man.
You
I'm showing
know,
my age pretty heavily
no,
right now, but that was
for
a great
sure.
time in hip hop.
No, for sure. And I know. If you guys watch Dank Talk every week, we tend to stray off topic. But I gotta say this, right,
Yeah,
bro? Do you remember how well we used to drive, and probably why we drive so well now? Because we used to have to drive with our knees, flip through the
yeah.
CD book,
Like,
and pop the CD in, bro.
dude,
Like half of
even
that
that,
shit.
rolling the fucking blunt, like half the time we didn't have nobody's house to go to at school, so we
Hot
just rode. Like we would
box.
just get in the car and ride.
Bro, no bullshit, but that was some of the best weed back then, bro. When you hot box and shit, like,
You just didn't have a tolerance, so it got you high as fuck no matter what you were smoking. You
bro,
know?
those were the days, man, for real.
Yeah,
You
man.
know?
And it's one of those funny things that, like, I don't know where you grew up, but like hip hop and weed culture have paralleled each other pretty heavily for 30 years, 40 years, like since its inception. And it really is dope to see how many of these artists that, you or I was listening to when we were in high school, man, they're still out there, still kicking it, still dropping music and still doing big shit.
Nah, for sure, bro. Who were some of the guys you grew up listening to out of Georgia? I'm pretty sure T.I. is one of them.
T.I. was a little bit later. Like when I was in high school, one of the first albums that I found that turned me on to Atlanta music in general was Southern Playlist of Cadillac Music, which was the first Outkast album. And so from then, you picked up ATLians, you picked up Aquemini, you started to pick up the Goody Mob, shout out to Backbone, shout out to Big Gip. Like I'm talking about like dudes, and when you go back and you look at these dudes were everywhere in hip hop at that point. They were in LA, they were in Atlanta, they were from Atlanta, but they were affecting the music scene everywhere.
No, for sure.
And there was a time when you couldn't go anywhere and not see Outkast playing somewhere, which is crazy that they don't play, they don't tour at all now, because those guys worked so hard when they were young kids.
Yeah.
They don't really have to,
Sure.
Wayne, like you said, Wayne's another good example of somebody who I remember listening to Wayne when he was 12.
I like them hot, the ones that don't take me that
12,
way.
the Hot Boys, the Hot Boys, like all of that stuff. And like the kids still making music, dude's still making music to this day and still making, what the Carter 6 or 7's about to come out soon or something like that.
Man, I didn't know that shit.
I want to say he's about to drop an album like in the next little while.
Yeah, man. I've always been a fan of Wayne and the way he uses words and I don't even know the word for it. Similes and just all type of adjectives to describe what he's trying to convey in his raps. Bro. Like one of the best to ever do it, man. Definitely. Yo, and
Atlanta hip hop changed my life, man. I'll be honest with you.
Atlanta hip hop changed the nations of hip hop. Period. Like majority. So we got to give New York its credit. Birthplace, but. From after New York, it left New York's hands, bro. Atlanta has held on to, not Atlanta, but Georgia, or Atlanta has held on to it and haven't really let go, since then,
Yeah, I mean, how much of today's music, how much of today's rap songs are produced in a studio in Atlanta, Georgia? So many. I mean, some of the biggest bangers that come out in the last 20 years have come out of studios in Atlanta. And it's all stuff that was paved by those early dudes that put Atlanta on the map, fought for Atlanta to be recognized in hip hop, and still to this day speak, very highly of their hometown. And, Atlanta is a different part of the South. When you go to Atlanta, it's different than any other part of Georgia. And when you go to other parts of Georgia, there's still a lot of really shitty stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know, Atlanta is a hub. It's a huge city that's gotten bigger, more culturally diverse. You know, it's one of those that, like, if you look at Georgia as a whole, Atlanta doesn't fit. It's a whole different fucking thing of its own. But for everybody else, when you go somewhere, you go into Atlanta. No matter where you're from, if you're not from Atlanta or in Atlanta, you're going to Atlanta.
No bullshit. And I'll give the example to Louisiana. Like, of course, nowhere is like New Orleans in Louisiana. But
yeah.
I guarantee you can go anywhere in Louisiana and still kind of get the New feel. You might not get the Bourbon Street or the, you know what I mean, stuff like that, but you'll get that down south southern Raging Cajun feel anywhere you go.
Yeah. Here's the difference, though, and here's why Miami and Atlanta are different than any of the other. Nashville's becoming this way, but not as much, but are becoming very cosmopolitan cities in the middle of red territory. Like, when I say that, it's real country everywhere in Louisiana. It don't matter if you in the city. It don't matter if it's country. Like, bro, it's country. It's country to the point where you or I might even not even understand what people are saying. And we're in one of the biggest cities in Louisiana.
Yeah.
But like in Georgia, it's a little bit different in the sense that Atlanta, while it has a lot of Georgia about it, it's become a 21st century city. It's become a city that, anything can happen. There's all sorts of money. There's all sorts of different socioeconomic classes. It's a melting pot of different people, different cultures, where if you go out of that city, anywhere else in Georgia ain't like that. It's not as like that,
What type of breeders besides yourself come out of Atlanta, or what type of, known crosses? Is Georgia Pie, is that from Atlanta?
I don't know. That's not a strain that I grew up with or heard anything about or knew anything about growing up. To be fair, the folks that I knew growing up were running anything they could get their hands on. So, like, one of the shows I want to do, and we've talked about before, is that I'm going to do kind of a speaking from some friends that were doing much bigger stuff than even myself back then, that have a lot more input on kind of what strains they were running, what they were doing, how it was going, what was, And so back then we were running whatever we could get our hands on. And it was usually you had a homie that had some seeds, you had a homie that might have had a cut. But Atlanta's always been one of those cities that's always had a heavy weed culture, tons of big grows go on in the city. Like, you would probably be surprised at some of the warehouse grows that have gone down in Metro Atlanta over the last 30 years. And here's what's funny. Like, I used to shop when I lived in that area. I used to shop at one of the only grocery stores in Atlanta, off Old National Highway. And when you were in that shop, man, it was literally the biggest melting pot of people. It was any culture of people. You would really be shocked at the people that were growing weed, because it was one of those things that you would see so many different cultures of people, and everybody was kind of vaguely trying to learn from each other. So you might talk to the grow shop guy, and you couldn't say you were growing weed.
That's exactly
we talked about tomatoes or whatever.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. Nobody was there to get tomato growing gear. Nobody. Nobody's ever grown tomatoes hydroponically and needed to go to the grocery store. Like, it doesn't happen. I mean, you might do that too, but that's not why any of us were there, especially not 20 years ago.
No, you know what, man? I got to give myself some credit, bro. I don't feel like such a rookie anymore, because I have been growing cannabis since we had to walk inside of the High Time stores and the Hydro stores, and we could not mention cannabis. If you mentioned cannabis, they would ask you to leave, man. I mean, granted, I also learned my first learning cultivation, it's probably going to tell how long I've been in the game, was from, I think it was a Joy Cervantes DVD that I don't remember where I got it from, But,
man. Monte's taught a lot of us how to grow weed, man. I learned from the Grow Bible. I still to this day, when people hit me up and want to know, like, where do you start? I tell them,
And
go get the Grow
it's
Bible, put it by the
free.
toilet. Every time you're in the toilet, just open it up and read a little bit. It doesn't have to be the same chapter. You don't even have to read it front to back.
Yeah.
Just every time you just read it. And you'll be surprised the next time you're in your grow and you see something, you'll immediately register, oh, that's a phosphorus problem because I just looked at it 5 minutes ago when I was taking a shit.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and you don't think about it, but you're training yourself to grow. So you get that book and you just leave it by the toilet, and every time you read a little bit and you read a little bit, and before you know it, you're answering your own your questions, and you don't even know why you have the answer. You're just like, I swear I've read this before, you know, like it just sticks with you.
Hey, Terp, I want to give a shout out to Tino's Genetics. Just joined the chat, the live, man. So
What's
shout
up,
out
Tom?
Tino's, man.
Yeah, shout out, man, for sure.
Yo,
Yeah, man, good people.
I forgot what I was about to say. Whatever. Shout out Tino.
Yeah, shout out to
You fucking
you.
started
Yeah,
up, but
yeah,
shout
yeah.
out Tino. Yeah,
Shout
man.
out, man. Yeah, man, he did. It's another one of those that, like, losing another Instagram page, like, it's not the most inconvenient thing in the world. It's just annoying because, like, you lose all your friends, all your contacts, you lose all your messages, you lose, you know, everybody that's followed you up until this point. So it's like, I think I'm on my 4th or 5th
Hey,
Instagram page, and I'm just done. I'm not posting weed pics. I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, fuck Instagram.
I'm not
You
gonna
know,
lie,
like,
bro. Why I got both of y'all in here? I know the people want to see it because I definitely want to see it. I have to see a Tino's Turk Fiend fucking collab, bro. That because
man, I got some of homies' gear in the box. I know I do.
yo,
I don't remember what, but green crack cross, cherries,
oh,
something,
so you,
green crack.
I think I
Yeah,
sent that
I
to
got
you.
some of homies.
No,
I got some of homies' gear.
no bullshit. I know Tino has moved on from the green cherries line, bro, but I gotta talk about it, man. I was one of the first people that he gave the green cherries to, bro. And once I grew it out, smelled it, smoked it, I hit him immediately. I was like, hey, bro, you got something on this one, bro. This shit is fucking terpy. Like, so yeah, man. Matter of fact, one of my first crosses was used with Tino's green cherries. That's how I made my roadkill pie,
Yeah,
actually.
I think the closest I got as far as stuff that we've worked in common that I know of was the Appalachia, because I worked with the Appalachia, which is a green crack cross of some sort. And then I ran green crack pretty heavily when I was working in Colorado, like large scale grows. That cut was like really heavy. You know, it was, if you ran it well, it chunked out really nice. And it was really popular when I was working like large scale grows. That was one that I had in a couple of my grows that I ran. And yeah, it's a great production strain. It really is. It's one of those that, like, it's not super overpowering in the terp department, but if you hit it to something else that's super terpy, it tends to kind of not overpower in the, you know, in the work.
I forgot what the green cherries was. I know green crack was in it, and
Maybe
man, what was it?
it was a cherry pie
I think
cross.
it was a cherry pie, but I don't know where it gets that smell from, bro. But green
He's
cherries has,
probably yelling at his screen right now.
you know, dope ass profile though, man. But yeah, and then I want to see the fucking green cherries with the dragon fruit kush, because that was another one of your strands that you don't even talk about, bro.
Nah, it's one of
I
those
think
Royal
people
Goose
slept on
strains
that
that,
shit.
like, there
Oh, is that
wasn't a
Royal
ton
Goose?
of them. Yeah. It was one of those Royal Goose strains, and I don't think there was a ton of packs. I don't think, I want to say that was one that, yeah, I sold a handful of, and then I never heard about it again until one or two
I
people
got two
bring it up
left.
every now and again.
I got two left. Yes, sir. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
your
I
shit,
think I
bro.
still have a few left. It's one that I've debated about going. All those Royal Goose crosses did amazing, man. Like I said, they were kind of bred for hash. The goal was something that was cushy, heavy cush, but that washed well, that made great hash. And that's kind of where that ended up. And all of the crosses with the Royal Goose, the goal has always been, once again, I tell people all the time, if I just had my way, we would all be smoking Kush crosses. I would sell out of fucking Kush crosses every single time, and all I would breed with was Banana Kush, Deep Chunk, Royal Goo, Heavy Kush, Long Valley Royal Kush. All I would run is Kush, but that's probably not what everybody else wants to run. So that's why I end up having to run other shit. But if you go back and look at the overarching theme of all of my seeds, it's been trying to get other people to just smoke more Kush.
No, yo, bro, that's. I think this is why we click, bro. Because the thought that I had that when Tino dropped in, you fucking brought it up. So I copped a pack of Deep Chunk F14 from you, right?
Yeah.
What can I expect from Deep Chunk, bro?
Kush. It's pure Kush. It's pure Kush. There's no two ways to describe it. It's Kush. It's heavy myrcene. It's lots of coffee.
Yes.
It's everything you've ever seen in the best Afghan Kush indicas. Yeah,
Hey.
it's if you find a good pheno, well, here's the thing: by the F14, there's not a lot of phenotypic difference. Like most of them they're going to look the same from front to back. The seeds that most people have run as Deep Chunk started with the line that was released from Tom way back when. My understanding at the time, I haven't spoken to too many people. I had a vague recollection at one point on Icy Mag that Tom mentioned that the ones that got released were an F8. The ones that I originally started working with were labeled F8.
Okay.
So we continued to just inbreed, just pick the best two that we loved, and each individual line, that was what we worked with. To be fair, there's a lot of problems with the seeds that everybody started with. There's still some hermaphrodite issues in the line. A lot of those plants weren't meant for production, so they don't do super well always under lights. And the problem with a lot of them was they would throw these tiny little golf ball nugs that weren't super impressive. They were kind of frosty, and they looked like very typical Kush, but more of what we think of kind of old world Kush, which is just not production stuff. Like it wasn't bred to be grown under modern lights in modern situations. So the selections that we've done have been generally plants that are more stable, that work well indoors a little bit more, and stuff that yielded a little bit better. So in my selections with it, by the F14, you should get plants that are commercially viable. Like you can throw them, you can grow flower, you can grow dank flower. It's not just going to throw tiny little popcorns, but it's not going to be the exact same as the one that everybody started with that still had multi-phenos. By the F8, there was, believe it or not, there was still a lot of difference, plant to plant. They looked the same, but they're not all bred with the exact same intent. So what you get even by an F8 is that you've weeded out a lot of stuff, a lot of phenos, and they all look similar. That doesn't mean they smell the same. That doesn't mean they extract the same. There's a lot of other things that go into commercial production that we don't really think of. So in my time working with Deep Chunk and the line that I've released, F12, I actually started with the F8s, so we've worked it through to F14s now. I'm done dealing with it. It's not a strain that I really want to push anymore down that road. It's another one I may go back to the original seeds I started with and just see what else we can do.
Man, I know this is probably a bad question, but I gotta ask it because you got me on here and I want to know. So I know we got the Pineapple Sorbet line coming out. I can see just the feedback in the Discord and on social media that people are going crazy for it. But I guess it's probably an inside question to me and you talk on that. But bro, I want to know what's next, bro. The fire just keeps coming, bro. I gotta know what's next, bro.
So I always said my goal was for anybody that shopped with me at any point, anybody that bought seeds with me, should be able to have whatever flavor they're looking for and something to surprise, right? So I try to keep a flavor for every palate. I try to keep some gas. I try to keep some chem. I try to keep some berry. Try to keep some citrus. I try to keep something that's exotic and you don't see coming. The next is I got to restock on some gas stuff. So I'm going to just do a whole round of just gas station, gas, funk.
Yeah.
Might throw some
call it what it is, bro.
But like,
Dank.
Yeah, Dank. Yeah, absolutely. And just, like OG's gas, that's what's next. I've done a couple of rounds. So I tend to do like a Kush round and then a fruit round. And then, I tend to do a little bit more fruit than I should, trying to really sift for exotic, unique stuff. Because I think that's generally, in the fruity realm is where we're seeing the most new, unique. Like, once again, certain things don't blend well. So if you're doing coffee cushes, they're not always going to blend well with like super unique, exotic, fruity strains. But so I go back and I'll do a round of like super exotic stuff, and then I'll do a round of gassy stuff. I'll do a round of, you know, kind of non-fruity, gassy, chem, skunk, stuff like that.
Dude.
That's what I did with the white cherry wedding cake, which now I kind of realized was, you know,
This
year and a half
so
ago.
good, bro. I forgot to light my blunt, and this motherfucker been twisted. It's like, damn. Hey, that's what's up, man. That's that dank, bro. Hey, cheers, everybody.
What are you smoking?
Monkey berries.
Monkey berries. That's interesting.
I don't know who the cultivar is. Who the geneticist is. And if somebody can look in the chat and see who produced monkey berries, that'll be pretty dope. But I got it from the dispensary, man. It's very high myrcene, high THC, berry gas.
Nice.
Berry gas. I actually like it a lot. One of my favorite strains of yours is the white cherry truffle.
Yeah.
I had the white, and so
wait.
I don't know if I tried.
Wait. I didn't make white cherry truffle. I made blackout truffle, and I made white cherry wedding cake. White cherry truffle is a strain that I worked with from Aficionado Seeds again, way back when. That's another, I want to say it's another chem heavy cross. And yeah, dude, it's another one that's dank as fuck.
What's the package that had the white and red cake on it?
White cherry wedding cake. It's a wedding cake deep chunk, white cherry truffle. And so that's, dude, it's once again like mostly kush heavy, chem heavy. Yeah, I still have seeds of that on the website, terpfiend.com. If you're looking for any of the, like that whole line, that white cherry wedding cake line was lots of like, that was my last non-fruity line that I did, which was, you know, there's the Slammer Skunk, which is lots of skunk heavy plants, the white cherry wedding cake. There was chem cross where I used some reservoir seeds, like old school vintage stock, like a chem double D from dude that's not around anymore and around the scene anymore. Reservoir seeds from, you know, maybe the late 90s, early 2000s or something. Pat just came in my lap and I did a, you know, cross to that with it.
Grease monkey times strawberry cream is what they said. Man, it's amazing.
Exotic?
I don't know who made it. So it comes in a container and it just has the
exotic genetics. Yeah, as soon as you said grease monkey strawberry and cream, that's exotic genetics for sure.
Man, that shit fire. I'm not even gonna lie, I like that shit.
That dude's done good work, man. A lot of his strains have gone on to do bigger things than I think he ever intended. And he's won tons of cups. Like him and Cuban growers, shout out to both those guys, have done huge work in the hash world, changed hash competition for years. Let's be honest, man, until 2015 when Cuban and Exotic started hitting the scene really hard, like you didn't see Sift. You didn't really see Sift. It was all melt. Those dudes started doing Sift, started doing rosin, and between them, they probably got more cups than they can count.
Man. And so another question I like to ask everybody that I'm on the show with is, who do you want to work with? Who it can be no name, nobodies, to all the way to the compound genetics and exotic genetics and stuff like that. Who do you want to work with? Like who is Terp's dream to work with? Because in my opinion, every breeder has one, bro.
Man, I don't think about it. It's not something that like I have an instant answer for you. You know, once again, like Exotic and those guys have done amazing shit in the field of hash, like as far as extracts go. That's always been my passion. Like for me, the true essence of the plant is to grow it and then turn it into, you know, some form of top end extract. And for me, like I love flower and I love smoking joints and I love puffing on flower. But at the end of the day, if you asked me, it could have an endless supply of weed, it could have an endless supply of hash. I would take that hash and I would run. I wouldn't
Hash
run. It
or
wouldn't even be a debate. Like, as long as it's the best of the best, I'm gonna take that hash and I'm gonna run with it, because I've just always been a hash fiend. Like, since I first found hash in the late '90s, it's something that changed my life. It changed my perspective on weed, you know. And it's the essence of the plant in its best form.
it's crazy, man, because where I grew up, at least the circle that I knew, maybe they knew something I didn't, but the circle I knew, hash wasn't prevalent like that. And I'll be honest with you, bro, the only time that hash became prevalent in my life is my time in Europe.
Yeah.
Everybody smoked hash. You know, they
See,
put it in their cigarettes.
we've talked about this before a little bit, but the truth is that American hash culture changed drastically with production. Once we started to have bigger and larger grows and legal grows here, more people were able to make hash. More people were, you know, there's more material to work with.
Understand.
And so 2014 to 2016, 2013 to 2016, the hash culture in America changed drastically. It's always been bigger in Europe because the large production centers of the world were in North Africa, were in, you know, in Morocco and, you know, places that aren't too far from Spain, like you said.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Amsterdam's always been big on both domestic hash and exported or imported hash. But for 40, 50, 60 years in this country, the only hash that came here was from another part of the world. And now you don't see hash anymore that didn't come from the U.S. Like, very, very rarely in the U.S. you get old school, like, Moroccan hash or temple balls or, you know, Afghan. This is stuff that up until mid 2010s, you know, like, was the only hash anybody really knew, unless you worked on a farm or you happen to have a black market contact, or, so, you know, there were rare exceptions, but it was much more rare. And now every lady I know has a pen in their purse. You know, every guy I know's got a vape on them. You know, everybody's smoking in some way. You know, all the way down to the, you know, folks who dab and you know, it's a lifestyle.
So again, a lot of weed stuff I turned my wife on to. She was a smoker before we got together, but as far as the quality of bud that we grown to know and love, I feel like I put her on, right? So when we got to Spain, she tried hash for the first time, bro. And that shit was hilarious, bro. Like, she was high as shit, bro. Like, I never forget, we were like sitting outside like the known barber shop, and it was kind of like in a square, because like it had stone benches and shit, and we was like nighttime. That shit was hilarious, bro. Like, she's like,
that's why somebody
go back on base like this. I'm like, man, you better calm down and get right when we go back on base.
That's why so many of those folks smoke it rolled with tobacco, though. It's rare over there to see somebody just blazing a fat spliff of weed and dank. Like, that's almost unheard of. But, like, almost everybody over, you know, that whole part of the world, well, they'll roll up with some tobacco real quick. And it really blew me away for the longest time, because I was like, this doesn't taste good. Like, why do you do it? And it came to me that they don't like to get fucking slammed out. Like, they don't like to get baked and shit. Yeah. And most of them have pretty medium tolerances to weed. And so that's, you know, it's all about spreading it out a little bit so you're not getting too zooted and can't get back up, you know?
Hey, Sensei, I want to teach your students something. Because so Weed Door had said something in the comments, and I want to know, like, he said, but there has his dry ship isn't, I don't know, I think he was trying to say that over there they don't wash, they dry ship. Is there a different, I've had dry sip and I've had wash, but I don't really taste anything different. Like, is there a difference between dry sip hash and wash hash?
Purity. The short answer is purity. With most SIF techniques, there's still a moderate amount of plant matter, unless you're doing like static tech, and you can literally remove nothing but heads. That's about the only point you're going to get SIF to a dabbable point, like purity, to where there's not leaving a ton of shit on your nail. But, like, historically speaking, a huge percentage of the hash that's ever been consumed in the world up until American legalization was made with screens and was dry sift. You know, in Amsterdam specifically, there was a movement through the late 80s, early 90s, where water hash became a thing and it started to pick up. And, there was definitely a point in the early US cup days where it was almost all melt. It was almost all melt. And like I said, until I would say 2014, 2015, when Cuban and those guys started getting really big on the hash scene, that Sift came back and rosin became a thing. And, he wasn't necessarily the first person to ever make rosin, but he was one of the early people that really put it out into the ether, and the first person I ever heard mention it, and like really becoming a thing. What's that? Cuban grower. Oh, Cuban grower. He's a cat originally from, I think when I met him, he was living in Washington. One of the most decorated hash makers in the U.S. He worked for years and years and years with Exotic Genetics, kind of running his gear, running his cuts of his gear. And those two dudes absolutely decimated the hash scene for probably close to a decade. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're still out there winning cups. Like, I don't really follow cup life like I used to. But yeah, there was a point where those guys absolutely dominated. They came into the scene and almost, I feel like nobody else won cups for a while in non-solvent, because those guys were just, I think he took, multiple first, second, or third, like multiple cups out of multiple different events. Like, those guys were just decorated. And a lot of it was, he's won with his sift. He's made some of the best sift that I've ever smoked in my life. His strawberry kush from back in the day, or his Cuban black haze, were just stupid. Yeah. The Cuban black haze was literally black pepper. It smelled like black pepper. It literally would make you sneeze like black pepper. Like, it just had that ridiculously heavy, stanky, myrcene funk. But yeah, man, huge shout out to Cuban Grower and Exotic Genetics Mike. He also made my seed separator that I've used for a few years now, and Exotic Mike did. Yeah, man, the good guys make great hash.
So another question I have, rookie question for you. So I started making dry shift and turning it solid, and I got it from something off of YouTube. So what I do is I collect out of my trim bin, I collect the dry sift, right? Mm-hmm. I use cellophane, put it in the cellophane, wrap it in paper towel, wrap it in a napkin, and throw it in the oven. Tape it up, throw it in the oven. And I bake it on real low for like 10 minutes 3 times. And so it solidifies, kind of melts my beds together. Is that degrading my hash, or should I
Depends on how long you cook it. If you overcook it, yeah, you definitely could. But you got to remember, man, like most hash, that's pretty much how the basis of how most hash was made in this country for years and years. Some sort of screen, multiple screenings, and then you just press what you have together, and depending on the quality will depend on what you end up with in the end. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely a way to make hash. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the only thing you could do differently, if you end up with some spare loot or spare time or spare friends you could trade with, get some screens, like different mesh screens where you can actually sift it out by head size. Okay. And that tends to be a little bit better for kind of, separating more of the plant matter from more of the heads. And then it depends on how much you're working with too. Like, to really make tons of purified hash, you need tons of material. Like, I don't mean literal tons, but now that we're talking in America, there are people working with literal tons of biomass. So that's not an unheard of thing. But most great hash didn't start with an ounce of weed, It usually comes from using whole plant, usually comes from having a really dialed in drying process. Yeah, I always say, man, like, non-solvent hash is one of the trickiest things to do and do well to make something that's really going to wow somebody, because not all strains make good non-solvent hash. You can take a strain that might do really well with BHO and it just doesn't perform in sift or doesn't perform in the wash. So it's like there really is an art, and those people tend to go through so many seeds to find one plant that's really amazing, and that's why they hold on to it when they find it.
And so another question, this is a question from Miss McBluntz. So while we were in Europe, she fell in love with this black Afghan hash. It's black. I can't, when I do mine and do my little process, it always comes out brown. Why?
Purity.
So is black better or is brown better? Because, you know, when I'm using the ice water, everybody says you want that goldy blonde. You know what I mean?
Darker, in my experience, darker hash usually comes from one or two things in sift, as far as sift, right? It tends to come from purity of product, and then it's kind of strain dependent. So, like, bigger heads are always going to make better hash, no matter how you extract them. And then purity matters the most. So, like, when you see dark hash like that, what's essentially happened is they've ruptured the glands that are in the hash. And they usually either use heat or extreme amounts of pressure, or a combination of the two, right? They're exploding the glands of the hash. Now, what this does is it exposes the resin and definitely makes it degrade to a certain point, but it also makes completely different terpene interactions. The way that it's, you know, we don't see that sort of hash anymore. Like, you just really don't, unless you're in Europe. Like,
No, it's
you
crazy
just don't see. But the other thing is, you can do the same. You can do the same trick with water hash. It's easier to do with water hash just because you've removed all the impurities.
Right.
So, like, when you get into making, like, dark hash like that, and it was Frenchy Cannoli and those guys, like, for years and years and years, pretty much gave talks about how to make bubble hash and then turn bubble hash into, you know, dark pressed hash, like, you know, that everybody remembers. And it's just about purity. It comes down to being able, with water, it's easier to remove a lot of the bullshit, you know, and to really separate the trichome heads from the plant matter. And so you don't have as much plant matter, your hash is pure, and it's easier to rupture those glands and to make that, like, dark taffy type hash that everybody remembers from, you know, the 70s, 80s, 90s. And if you're in Europe now, I'm sure there's some there somewhere, you know. They're still making hash over there. It's just funny that in the U.S. we don't import any more of that hash. Like, everything here is domestic now. There's so many BHO labs in this country, and so many people making distillate for carts, and so many people making melt and rosin, and yeah, it's just nobody's really
at now.
He passed away.
Rest in peace, Frenchie. I didn't know that.
R.I.P. to Frenchy Cannoli, man. That dude spent years and years and years going around giving talks to people on how to make hash and make better hash, and, you know, was a pioneer for sure. Was somebody who pushed it for years and really brought, you know, I think the thing that those guys did was that they would go and do classes and, like, literally show people the process. Whereas for a lot of people, you either watching it online or you might have read it in a book. You probably don't have all that much material to play with, so you don't really have, you know, room to make mistakes. And it's like, once you have hash to work, material to work with on a commercial level, man, making amazing hash is a lot easier than if you're trying to, you know, process a couple ounces at your house. Like, that's not, those two aren't the same.
Right, I agree. Hey, bro, just looking at the time, I know it's your show, but it looks like we got like 6 minutes left. I don't know if you want to open it up to questions for the last 6 minutes or what.
We got a couple minutes, man. I do want to say once again, new sorbet drop, www.terpfi3ndterpfiend.com. Go get some of those sorbet strains. We got a bundle where you can get all of the strains at a really discounted price. You can get them in 5 and 10 seed packs. You know, pretty much there's something here for everybody. If you're looking for exotic, if you're looking for hash plants, if you're looking for something that washes but everybody else isn't running, yeah, this is the one for you. What you got going on, man? You got something new coming out soon? Still working on some stuff?
If you're looking for guaranteed great terps, everyone that's grown my caramel grape donuts has given me great terps, great fuel. Get at me. They're ready, available, ready to go. I don't have many left. We'll be repopulating them, but this is the first generation of the caramel grape donuts, so you definitely want to get them while they're out here. Also, on Saturdays, you got the Business is Blooming podcast. This Saturday, I got Maha. Shout out Maha, Oaksterdam University alum. She'll be on the show. And then Terp Fiend will be on the show coming up. You know, he's gonna return the favor, so I think that's pretty dope. And
just tell
you
me
guys
when, man. Tell me when. You do yours Saturday before I do mine, right? Like earlier in the day.
6 p.m.
Yeah, I have to do the double header, but yeah, we'll put it together, man.
For sure.
You just tell me when you got a weekend, and I'll do it anytime.
No, for sure. I appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no sweat. Man, it's just been to be honest, after having surgery, finally getting back on my feet, like it's taken me weeks now to just get through all of the backlog of, everything from orders to just packs I promised to get my Instagram back up. Like, it's just been busy and just trying to get caught back up. So it's like now that I'm getting back into a run of doing these, I'm going to have my buddy Drew come on this weekend and do Saturday with me on the OG chat. Yeah, man. Green Star, shout out to Green Star Grower on Instagram. That dude's, he and I've known him for a little while. I met him early and when I moved to Colorado. He was just one of those people that like we could sit and talk shit about weed 8 hours a day for the next year and never run out of shit to talk about,
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just he's been on once before, and I'm kind of trying to get the couple of guests that I had booked and had to reschedule while I was down for surgery, trying to get back in to get those rescheduled. A couple of folks that I talked to and had on the docket to go and then had to back out of, and and so once again, man, you tell me when at this point and I'll make time. Yeah, no problem.
No, I appreciate it. Hey, I want
to say I'm doing another podcast tomorrow, and I'm gonna slip on whose it is because bro, I'm scheduling them left and right, and like I'm trying to remember everybody's that I have on the docket. I'm trying to find unique shit to talk about with every person, and in it I've completely slipped on what other podcasts I'm doing tomorrow.
Hey, bro, I want to give one more plug if I can, bro.
I'll post an ad tomorrow, so keep on my Instagram. I'm sorry.
No, for sure. I want to give one more plug if I can. Shout out to Supply Chain, man. We got the King Neptune coming. Virginia, look out, man. Something in the waters is coming up. King Neptune may make an appearance. So You guys tune in. King Neptune, check me out. It's going down. Shout out Supply Chain too.
Yeah, cool, man. All right, we're gonna call it. It was a good one. We'll see you next week. Thanks for everybody that tunes in, everybody that checks these out on YouTube, anybody that, we're going to try and get more advertising going for all these things and get all these juggling back up in the air now that I'm back on my feet. So we'll get it all figured out. But thanks to everybody that joins. If you enjoyed anything here, please tell a friend, hit a like, whatever you can do. And we appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Peace.